Hey folks, it's Billy DKY, the truth seeker that simplifies and demystifies. This video is going to be my current situation, and RF Welsh was wanting to know yesterday, based on my video of when all the doors shut. He left a comment. He had some questions in it, so I'll read the questions and I'll go through and answer them and talk about them. I like this video, Billy. I'm interested in hearing your story in more detail. How are you making ends meet? How are you dealing with the stigma of being unemployed? Is this your mother's house? Is she supportive? Is she like the mama bird pushing you out? Basically, let's see. Let's just start. I'm interested in more your story is more detail. How are you making ends meet? Making ends meet. Basically, I live simple. I actually live what I preach. So, Principle 9 is simplicity, and basically, living simple. And like I say, I eat very plain and simple foods, and I haven't mastered that yet. However, plain and simple foods are really cheap, and people don't realize they don't need nearly as much as they think they do. When I say need, I don't necessarily mean starving yourself. I mean actually optimal, for optimal power, spirit, mind, essence, whatever you want to call it. So right now, I'm at the point where my expenses are pretty minimal. I mean, anywhere I try to go in town, if it's the sunshine, I ride my bike. I'm living real simple, so I'm not too worried about having a lot of overhead. I don't have any debts. I paid that all off a long time ago when I started the spiritual journey. I started on it when I started the spiritual journey, and I knew things were going to change. Like I said, I had the #1 rated job, so my first goal was paying off all my debts, and then again, using those principles. I didn't know the principles at the time. I just sort of was doing whatever worked, which was those principles. So that brings another point. The principles weren't thought processes I came up with. Those principles came about because of my philosophy was, if it works, do it. If it doesn't work, quit doing it and pay attention so you can learn the difference. So those principles came out of what worked. So I knew things were going to transition. I knew I wasn't going to be in that job forever, and I knew there might be a transitional period. I didn't realize how it was all going to go down. So I was saving money, and it happened a little bit sooner than I expected. And at my prior work, I was being pushed out like the mama bird was pushing that bird off the ledge. I was being pushed out of there to an extent, but in a way, I sort of said that too. Okay, so how are you making ends meet? Basically, I saved up money, and I knew what was going to happen, and I wanted to save up enough money that I wouldn't have to get a job in the transition period if I didn't want to. I mean, obviously, I was going to have to live small and live humiliating in a way to live, because yes, this is my mother's house. This is a sewing room that she built on to her house probably 7 years ago, and really, it's a pretty good. Even though I don't like living here, even though it is extremely humiliating, it's actually not a bad situation because I got a lot of light. I need a lot of light to be happy, really. And I got plenty of windows here, which you can't really see. And I don't know. And all in all, realistically, it's not that bad. However, I can feel the mama bird pushing on me. And I say mama bird, not necessarily my mother, but just the whole circumstance. Is almost like God pushing you out. And I don't mean, again, I'm not necessarily God of the Bible. Just the essence of life is forcing me onto the next level. And again, once you understand everything's about growth, you realize it's always trying to push you to go that next level. And I think I'm getting strong enough to go that next level. And I've also known from the beginning that until I conquer food, I won't do what I'm supposed to do. And because I've just always known that, and I'm getting really close. When I say conquer food, I don't mean starving yourself at all or anything silly. But, anyway. How are you dealing with the stigma of being unemployed? Really, it don't bother me. I mean, I don't even I know I have such a self-confidence of knowing what I'm supposed to do and knowing what I'm going to do that it don't really bother me. But typically, it don't bother me until I run into people and I see it in their minds that they're judging me. I read it on their face that they're judging me like I'm a loser. I'm like, what the heck? I said, do you even have a clue who I am? I mean, I already had the #1 rated job and I gave it up because I found something better. I'm like, man. But occasionally it's difficult, but I'd say no more than 5% of the time. Um, how are you doing with the stigma of being unemployed? Oh, yeah. Is your mother's house? Yes, it's my mother's house, and I do pay rent, but it's not much. I mean, it's, basically to cover expenses and whatnot. Um, is she supportive? It's sort of like this. When I first started the spiritual journey, my mother was excited about, oh my God, you're gonna be famous, and she was all excited about it and this and that. And she tried doing a little meditation and practicing and training, but really once she started doing it, she started seeing how bad her attitude was. She actually experienced her attitude firsthand, and as soon as she experienced her bad attitude, she'd give up. So I'm gonna go back to my angel book, and so. They really don't get it, to be honest with you. That's part of the reason. And part of, like yesterday when I said all the doors are shutting down, basically there's everything here that was, so there's some things that were keeping me here. Like I have a soulmate in this town. I was like, well, I didn't want to leave because maybe it's supposed to work out. I don't care about that no more. You know what I'm saying? I was like, there'll be a better one come along. If that one don't work out on its own, fine. It's fine with me. I don't care anymore. I'm willing to move on. And just a lot of little things. And so the money ain't really too worried about. However, I am seeing if I don't do something within the next year or two, it might get a little, get a little tight. So I'm really motivated to get the book out. I've looked back through, as I've been unemployed over the last several years, or last 2 years, I've had time to reflect upon it and get a little scared here and there. And I look back over my life and I realize that the essence of life has been taking care of me. If certain things hadn't happened at certain times, I would not have made it. And I just, it's I can just tell it's all going to be all right. I'm not really scared. I'm more, like I said, I'm more motivated. It's like that little baby bird yesterday getting pushed out. The mother knew it had the power to fly. And I feel like the essence of life knows I've got what it takes to venture out and do what I've got to do, and it's trying to push me. And I don't necessarily mean my mother, my physical mother, but it's like the world just pushing me out. It's ready. I'm getting the strength. I'm sort of caught up to where I should have been in the first place if I wouldn't have screwed up. And my ex-wife told me this once. She said, "Billy, you should be the most confident guy in the world." She said, "But you're not." And the reason I wasn't confident is because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I couldn't be confident because I knew I didn't. It's like being an MMA fighter. You got super talented, but you really just don't know yet. It's sort of like Rashad Evans when he said, am I really the best in the world? And so he was doubting himself because he knew he's realistic enough to know that he hadn't proved it. So he needed to prove it to know. And so really, everything's going fine. And I did want to say thanks for the comment on the PayPal donation thing. I don't think I'm going to do it right now because, like I say, the money's fine. I mean, as far as getting by right now, I'm doing fine. However, if things do get tight, I may consider doing something like that. And like I said in the comment to some of those questions, I've known from the beginning on my spiritual path, every time to go to the next level, it's always required me to change. Not for somebody in the world to change or this to change or for people to do this or that. For me, what it's always boiled down to is me changing. So I know the spiritual movement will happen, and it's really all directly dependent upon me changing. As I become a better man, people will not be able to deny what I have to say. You know what I mean? They just won't have what it takes to mentally deal with me. And if you've ever read The Mystery Method by Mystery, it's all about how to pick up beautiful women and stuff like that. He says if your frame is strong enough, everything he said in that book is irrelevant because you can do whatever you want. And that's basically what's happening now. As my frame, and which I say, when he says frame, I take it as meaning essence. As my essence gets big enough, I will be able to do what I want in this world, and there won't be anybody really oppose me. Plus, I'll also have the technical expertise and willingness to learn to get it done. It sort of reminds me too of MMA. If you're big enough and bad enough man, you could almost walk through most men's technique, and really only have to learn a little bit of technique to get it done. And that's the way I sort of look at this. If I get my mind great enough, people won't be able to oppose me. Plus, I'm also not opposed to, getting better at dealing with people and stuff like that. So, it's only a matter of time, and as I change, become more polished, because right now I cuss and stuff and do crap and, blowing up and being irritable. So as I become a more polished human being, it will be very hard to for society to ignore me. And basically, that I'm just being motivated. I feel like I'm being motivated, not necessarily scared. So anyway, hopefully that answers some of your questions. And until the next video, later, folks.